without fear that your child will be harmed by the Border Patrol or by the police. Freedom from violence is reproductive justice. With that said, our next speaker is Elisa Rodriguez. Elisa Rodriguez is the mother of Mark Carrasco. Mark Carrasco was a Latino man that was fatally killed by the San Diego Police Department in 2011. Elisa Rodriguez has been elevating her son's story and demanding justice for her son since 2011. She will be honoring her son and speaking about who he truly was and how she wants him to be remembered with us. Please give it up for Elisa Rodriguez.
Okay, I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me. As you said, my son was taken from me 8 years ago by SCPD, and he had deserved to die the way he did. He was already in his room sleeping, and they came in, of course, fearing for their life. They shot him 9 times. And he was already sleeping, so I don't understand. Policies they have to change because it's so sad. It's like every day you wake up and you hear of another police shooting, and no one is surprised anymore. It's just like, to them it's like an everyday thing, but it isn't. What they took from me, it can't be replaced. And he had 2 beautiful children. He was a good person, not just because he was my son, but he was a good person. I mean, he went to school like he was supposed to do, graduated, 3.8. He was an electrician. He took care of his children. He was an all-around good person. Only fault he had was he had a very beautiful smile. He had like all these girls always calling to see, my home, like, don't you girls have anything to do? But like what my parents would always say, tiene que hacer, póngase, do something, changing the toys around. But my son, like I said, he was a very, very beautiful person, very contagious smile everywhere he went. But it's just awful how the world is now. You can't even be safe at your own home. You're not even safe, like just what happened last weekend in Poway. You're not safe anywhere. Like where can you be safe? Like if you can't be safe in your home, church, your place of worship, like anywhere. And it's just sad. And it's sad that like the people that I met today, we have that one thing in common, who lost a loved one due to police brutality. When are they going to be held accountable for what they do? They live on, and I don't wish death upon anyone, but it just breaks my heart like whenever one of theirs dies, all they think about, like, oh, they had a wife, they had a husband, they had children. Well, so did my son. My son's life. I mean, he had value, but the way the media portrays them, they always make them out to be like the bad guy. And my son was not a bad guy, not at all. And I remember also when a couple of days after he was taken, this silly little girl asked me, like, this is when I should be mad at God. Why would I be mad at God? God didn't do this, but the only thing that I am angry about is how he was taken from me. Because like I said, my son was never a troublemaker, went to school, had a job, always made sure that he went to work. If he had been drinking the night before or doing whatever, he would always get up, regardless of the time, go to work and take care of his children. And even now that he's not with us, he's still taking care of his children because, he would provide for them. And my message to you is like, every chance you get, tell your children how much you love them, hug them, don't ever miss an opportunity because tomorrow is never promised. And you never want to get that phone call. That was one of my biggest fears in life, is getting a phone call like, we need you to come and identify this body. Thank God his dad was around to identify it, because if I would have been, I would probably be in a fetus position until the day was for me to, go join them. So please, love your children, tell them you love them. And just, tomorrow is never promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. We have another person who's going to speak. As Elisa said, some of us have been connected through the sad, unfortunate reality that our loved ones have been killed by the police. A lot of our reproductive justice stories are connected and intertwined. The next person I want to introduce is Maria Hoyt. Maria Hoyt is the aunt of Sergio Weick, a Latino father who was unarmed and shot 26 times by a sheriff's deputy in Vista, California. Maria Hoyt is a mother and an organizer who has been elevating Sergio Weick's stories, leading marches, leading rallies, and demanding justice for her nephew and all victims of police brutality. Please give it up for Maria Hoyt.
Thank you for having me here. Sergio was my nephew, as she said. Sergio by no means was, perfect. Made a lot of mistakes. He grew up in a household of a single mother, as my kids did. She was my sister. At a very young age, he had the misfortune of joining a gang. He ended up, abusing drugs. And he went to jail a few times. He did grow up, and he straightened up his life. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. When he was murdered, Sergio was at the verge of straightening up his life quite a bit. He was already, living with his current partner. They had just celebrated the birth of his fifth child. The birthday of his fifth child, and it was his 1-year birthday. The deputy he was shot by 2 deputies. 38 times were the number of bullets that were removed from his body. He was shot in the back all the times. 2 of those gunshots were fatal. One of the officers reloaded. He stopped and reloaded. There's no telling how many times and how many bullets were shot, because only 28 bullets were removed from his body. One of those bullets severed an artery. The other bullet, he stood over him and he shot him in the back of the head. Sergio was kept alive for 5 days, and he donated 5 of his organs to 5 different people. His pancreas was not able to be used because it had been shot up. But his heart, his liver, his kidney, and there was another one that he was able to use. I did keep in touch with the donor, the recipient of his heart, and he was very grateful. Of course, he was a grandfather. He was able to see his granddaughter ride a skateboard, and he wrote me a very touching letter. So in that sense, he healed, literally with his heart, he healed other people. We as a family have suffered the loss of my parents, which was very devastating, of course, as anybody knows. But our parents, they were in their 70s, in their late 70s. We lost a sister who we lost a terminal disease. And the loss was devastating, but nowhere near the way it felt to have lost Sergio, because he was murdered. The deputies are still working. They were not charged with anything. It was deemed a justifiable homicide, and they're still working. Nothing ever happened to him. The kids are left without a father. We're left to deal with all of this tragedy. This has brought all of us together. We've now become a family. Rocio, everybody, we have grown together. We have learned to slowly but surely start healing. I don't know what else to say other than, it's hard for us, but together, we can learn. We can learn from these tragedies to lean on one another, and to be there for each other as a whole, as a community, a Latino community, because It seems that most of the communities out there don't listen to us because they seem to think that we're expendable. So don't let that happen and stay together. Thank you.
I have the pleasure of introducing our next storytellers, Bree and Rocio. Bree identifies as an unapologetic queer, multiracial Latinx woman, born and raised in San Diego. Rocio is an educator, organizer, fighter, writer, and artist from San Diego. Both Rocio and Bree lost a loved one to police brutality. Rocio's cousin, Jonathan Coronel, was shot 22 times by Sheriff's Deputy in Vista on July of 2017. 9 months later, Bree's uncle, Raul Rivera, was shot more than 20 times by the San Diego police in May of 2018. Bree and Rocio have been organizing alongside of other families who lost loved ones to police brutality to demand justice for all stolen lives. They have recently created a zine to document their collective journey of healing and will be sharing a piece with us tonight. So please give it up for Rocio and Bree.
Y'all hear us?
Amiga, because you fight, I am more empowered to do so. Because you show support, I am able to keep on going. You have shown me reciprocal inspiration and empowerment. Tú eres mi otro yo, you are my other me. Thank you for showing up.
I did it because it was the right thing to do. It's how I show love for community and how I acknowledge that fighting against police brutality is a continuous, lifelong fight. We both experienced an act of terror. 9.5 months apart, our loved ones were slain. For us, a lifetime connected, but never alone. Celebrating an accomplishment or happy moment is easy, but how are you showing up in moments of grief?
I'm sorry for your loss is not enough. If you are not willing to show up, I don't need you. We are worthy of people doing everything in their capacity to ensure our safety and well-being.
We are not disposable. You don't get to kill us, you don't get to terrorize us, and then think that we're not going to get up and fight back. Through fighting for justice, we will find joy and healing in our liberation. We are lifted by the spirits of women of color that came before us. Our pride and energy to continue fighting is rooted in a deep understanding that women of color have always done this work. The unsung chingonas that have always frontlined the movement. Tú ya sabes que sin mujeres no hay revolución. We are fighters, kindred spirits, and no one can stop us when we are alone, but especially when we are together.
We are a grenade of incredible willpower and righteous rage, and we are not afraid to start a commotion. We will shake up your world and force you to acknowledge the pain. We will not allow you to be comfortable while you kill us. We will speak to true power, pollinating the wind with our voices, reaching even those who refuse to hear. Our force is unstoppable and powerful. Like Goyo Shaki, our broken pieces will spread across the dark sky for everyone to see,
Rising again and again,
collectively building as if there were no limits to what we can create. Will you join us? The choice is yours. What will you make?
Test. Hello everyone, I just wanted to acknowledge all the folks that spoke before me. I was standing on the side and I just definitely am filled with a lot of energy and just feeling all the emotions that we're sharing here, and they're just in the room. So I'm actually here to just share a little bit of sort of a dedication. I wanted to share a song that you all might be familiar with, La Llorona, to sort of contextualize some of the pain that I think our communities go through that gets overlooked and washed over once maybe our stories are no longer in the headlines, or because there's so many of our stories in the headlines. It's kind of like dismissed. But I know that we see each other, and our pain and our joy and our sorrow is all power. And so I wanted to share that song in a few poems.
No sé qué tienen las flores, Llorona, las flores de un campo santo. No sé qué tienen las flores, Llorona, las flores de un campo santo, que cuando las mueve el viento, Llorona, parece que están llorando. Y cuando las mueve el viento, Llorona, parece que están llorando. Ay de mí, Llorona, 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 llévame al río. Ay de mí, Llorona, 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 llévame al río. Tápame con tu rebozo, Llorona, que me muero de frío. Tápame con tu rebozo, Llorona, que me muero de frío. Salías del templo un día, Llorona, cuando al pasar yo te vi. Salías del templo un día, Llorona, cuando al pasar yo te vi. Hermoso huipil llevabas, Llorona, que la Virgen te creí. Y hermoso huipil llevabas, Llorona, que la Virgen te creí. Ay de mí, Llorona, 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 de ayer y hoy. Ay de mí, Llorona, 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 de ayer y hoy. Yo ayer maravilla fui, Llorona, y hoy ni sombra soy. Yo ayer maravilla fui, Llorona, y hoy ni sombra soy. ¿Crees porque te quiero, Llorona? ¿Quieres que te quiera más? ¿Crees porque te quiero, Llorona? ¿Quieres que te quiera más? Si ya te he dado la vida, Llorona, ¿qué más quieres? ¿Quieres más?
Thank you. And I just wanted to say too, with the song La Llorona, I've seen different iterations of the story, and I know that one of the stories that I heard that struck me very much was La Llorona in the context of colonialism and the violence of colonialism upon indigenous communities and the erasure of those communities, and thinking about how those same systems are the ones that are our police systems today, right? These systems of exclusion and violence. And so I think that we are still weeping that violence, you know? And I think the story of this woman drowning her children, the last iteration I heard, it was like she drowned them because she didn't want them to be subject to a society where they would live basically enslaved under colonialism. So I like to think about it in that way and how that permeates and resonates with what was said today. And I have just one more piece to share, thinking about, I know we're right here in La Frontera, and just thinking about that reproductive justice is definitely intersected with immigration justice, and how mothers that cross borders, that are fighting occupation and just all these different forms of violence oftentimes are overlooked or erased from the story of migration sometimes, or the complexities of what it means to be a migrant mother. So I wanted to share a song called Sandra that I wrote to a friend of mine who's a migrant woman from El Salvador. I actually wrote this to her when I was in high school, and I think her story still rings true to everything happening in our region right now, and to so many women that are just here waiting or sitting in detention centers. So I'll do a short spoken word poem in English and then a song. In the back of a restaurant kitchen, she stands crying. She cries the tears of a mother that has left her world behind. But you might never know that every second of the last 5 years in which she hasn't seen her daughter stabs her like a knife because she smiles when she brings you more to drink. And you'll never hear when Sandra's daughter calls and asks, Mami, ¿dónde estás? Mother, where are you? Or when Sandra lies and says, I just need a little more time. Un poco más de tiempo, mi amor, and then I'll bring you back to the United States with me, I promise. But yet, like an empty womb, Sandra's heart throbs. Between double shifts and endless shifts, there are moments where she is still, and she can feel nothing but the pain of her own regret. She cannot help but wonder if her sacrifice is worth it, if leaving her daughter behind to provide a better life was the right choice. Transfixed by guilt and love, her spirit is transported across borders and oceans, taking her back to the only thing that causes her to rise each day. But overwhelmed by her inability to cope with the separation, her heart swells as it floods uncontrollably through her eyes, just like the day she left, and every night since then. You see, Sandra is Palestine, Mexico, Latinoamérica. She is Haití and Tijuana, Centroamérica. She is a woman drifting in boats at this very moment, hoping that these fragile vessels are strong enough to carry the immensity of her dreams. And she weeps the tears of women that are not seen and are not heard, women who cross both physical and systemic barriers each and every day despite the possibility of doom, only to be stamped, labeled criminal, illegal, other, only to be told that they do not belong. But I know no cause more noble, no character more fearless, for a mother's strength is greater than any wall built by the imaginations of men. Her love more daring than the sea is treacherous. Esta canción se la dedico a todas las mujeres mariposas, aquellas que tienen la audacia de volar. Su piel morena baila en el sol ardiente. Su cara iluminada por las lágrimas que llora, hoy como ayer se ha dejado su mundo atrás y su
han traído